This is going to be my impromptu reaction to Detroit's 30-24 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, a day where obviously Detroit got outplayed for most of the second half, particularly the third quarter. I think you only run 6 offensive snaps during that third quarter, allow the Steelers to run, I believe it's 26 or 27 offensive snaps, give up 2 really horrible rushing touchdowns from an alignment and a responsibility standpoint to Jalen Warren, both of which, ironically, were for 45 yards. I want to talk about the last drive. First of all, I don't know about you, but it was really frustrating on the day to watch this Lions team not come out with a better ability to execute on offense. The defensive lack of awareness at times is shocking to me. I think maybe I'll hold my thoughts there completely for some film study videos on Monday if you guys are interested. But I'm going to talk about the offensive pass interference that's called here that you see a picture of on the screen, Isaac Tesla. It should not be an OPI. I'm not able to show the video, obviously, but I paused it at a certain point here. You got Joey Porter clearly putting hands on Tesla, blocking him into the safety. I don't know what Tesla's supposed to do. I guess he's supposed to just stop his momentum completely and turn such that he doesn't make contact with the safety. I don't think that's an offensive pass interference. I don't think that's called on the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think it's called on the Buffalo Bills. I don't think it's called on certain teams across the NFL. It's a way to influence, or Tim Donaghy, I think years ago, with reference to the NBA, called it shading, remove certain teams' ability to run those concepts, pick rub routes, if you will, and then allow other teams to get away with it consistently. You can boost performance or plus minus 1 or 2 points. That's a game-winning touchdown to St. Brown in my book that puts Detroit up 30-29. It doesn't make sense to me. The second one that's called on St. Brown, and then the crazy lateral to Goff, it's a super aware play from his perspective. I mean, that's OPI. He runs directly into Ramsey, who's retreating. For me, if Ramsey is going to get off, I think he's like 3 yards in the end zone, then we've just got to stop and let Goff throw the football. It ends up, being on the 1 yard line. It looked to me like a version of, some people will call it a trap coverage. The Steelers almost kind of call it two read, where basically the corner is sitting waiting for the slot receiver, in this case St. Brown, to run the out. I got no problem with the second offensive pass interference. This one I think is horseshit and would be the one that I would be upset about, along with the lack of awareness and preparation. And really, Detroit got out-physicaled for much of today's game. I'm not able to put my complete thoughts out here, but I want to focus on 2 situations that really bothered me and kind of set up this loss that, of course, at this point, puts Detroit at 8-7. And the first one for me is the late second quarter situation with Anzalone on Gainwell. Don't get me wrong, it's a great play by Gainwell to be able to maintain his balance, or I should say regain his balance, and then catch the football somehow for a 55-yard, or maybe it was a 45-yard touchdown from Aaron Rodgers. It's a 2nd and 10. There's 11 seconds left in the half, I believe, when the ball was snapped. I just don't feel like there's any justification for Kelvin Shepherd playing the coverage that he did there, which essentially left Anzalone totally in man-to-man on Gainwell for 1/3 or almost even 1/2 that side of the field. At that point, it's 10-3 Detroit. Like I said, I believe there's 11 seconds left in the half as the ball is snapped. Maybe it's as much as 13 or 14, but I don't think so. And they're approaching field goal range or close to it. Boswell's usually a really reliable kicker. I know he missed one late in the game that would have put them up by 8 points, but I cannot justify or defend that coverage choice. There's no reason for Anzalone plays a lot of man coverage into the boundary against running backs and sometimes tight ends. I don't feel like he's been as good in 2025 as he was in the previous 2 years at that coverage concept. That's what the Lions do. I get it. I understand. But in that situation, ahead 10-3 and a half, didn't really play well offensively early, went for it on 4th down and didn't get it, so possibly left some points on the board. Had trouble in pass pro clearly because of the offensive line deficiencies. You're down to, at some point, your 3rd, or maybe even you want to call it your 4th string center, a guy who I think is supposed to be, really on your practice squad. But in any case, really poor coverage decision. Anzalone's going to be called for DPI there. Could Anzalone play it better? Sure. There's no reason, in my opinion, to leave him that exposed against a guy, Gainwell, who's not super talented. He's got a lot of production for the Steelers, don't get me wrong. It's because they have limited offensive weapons, really, and they're kind of just going to him because, A, he's very intelligent and very smart. One of the few players for the Steelers that all year has been on the same page with Aaron Rodgers. Regardless of what Lions fans think of Rodgers, I've seen him twice now in person, not at the games live, but watching against the Ravens the first time and now against the Lions. Super prepared for the game. If you show something to him pre-snap like this coverage, he's going to confirm post-snap, okay, there will be no safety help. Let me just throw the football up and give Gainwell an opportunity to make a play. At worst, it will be incomplete. In between, perhaps a draw for them will be a DPI that turns it into a closer field goal attempt late in the second quarter. I just cannot understand what the thought process is there for Kelvin Shepherd in playing what to me looks like a one-high safety look and no help whatsoever, no softer zone coverage that basically says, okay, if you want to, on 2nd and 10, complete a 7 or an 8-yard gain underneath, go right ahead, kick your field goal. We'll see you in the third quarter with a 10-6 lead. The other situation that I want to talk about, something that really bothers me and I believe in, is pre-snap alignment, especially on what we would call run pass down. So a run or a pass down means it's not predetermined that it's going to be a pass play like a 3rd and 8 or a 3rd and 14 or something late in the second quarter or late in the game. This is Jaylen Warren's first touchdown run, I believe. It's a 45-yarder. It makes it 22-10. This is terrible alignment by the defense pre-snap. I'm not able to draw on the screen here, so my apologies for that. But the way that you count numbers here, I guess we'll start from outside in, which is kind of really the wrong way to do it. 81 is Jonnu Smith all the way to the left. He would be 1. Darnell Washington, this is outside in, left to right. 2. The jumbo or eligible offensive tackle will be number 3, and then you have the actual left tackle and the left guard. That's 4. That's called a 5-man surface has been created with Jonnu Smith plus the left guard, left tackle, eligible tight end, and then Darnell Washington. The center and the quarterback count for a half a man each. The running back counts for a half a man as well because they're lined up on the midline. Now, if you do the same count for the Lions, they don't have a player on the midline, so they don't get that extra half man, or in the case of the Steelers, an extra 1.5 in the center, quarterback, running back combo. Count the players for the Lions. Unless you're better at math than I am, I see 5. So even if you don't believe in counting players like that, there's some people who do not. Once Jaylen Warren gets the football, you're talking about 5 lead blockers for the Steelers and the ball carrier, Jaylen Warren, against your 5 defenders. You have no ability to defend every gap because you have a 2-gap bubble. The 2-gap bubble exists between the defensive tackle, I think it's Tyleik Williams, in a 3 technique, and the edge defender, Derek Barnes, who's outside of Darnell Washington. You're absolutely outflanked and misaligned as a defense. This bothers me to no end. Basically, what I'm saying is the defensive line alignment to the right-hand side of our screen or the left-hand side for the Lions should be kicked to the other side. You should have 3 defensive linemen to a 4-man surface and 2 defensive linemen to a 2-man surface. The Lions have inverted it, and they paid the price. The other situation that annoyed me to no end was the second touchdown by Jaylen Warren of 45 yards. It's a formation that the Steelers had shown 3 times, well, twice, I should say, leading up to that play. A jumbo 12 personnel group, slot I. In each of the previous 2 iterations, they had run a zone lead concept to the weak side, away from the tight ends. And that's the same exact thing they did on the second touchdown. Alex Anzalone kind of goes underneath because he reads the tight end fullback, kind of winding it back, and it opens up a huge lane. In my opinion, the defensive lack of awareness, game situation, really cost you here on a day when clearly the offense couldn't get anything done consistently by running the ball. I think you finished with 15 yards total on 12 carries related to the offensive line. The lack of talent along the offensive line because certain guys being out, don't get me wrong. Again, I want to reiterate, the Lions deserve plenty of blame, but in my opinion, they did what they needed to do to get down here and go ahead on the touchdown to St. Brown. The picture that I have displayed, I understand people will have a different opinion that he should, turn and face the quarterback to make it look, less possible the refs are going to call it. To me, what I've been taught is once they jam you or funnel you to the inside, like Joey Porter Jr. does on every single snap, getting his hands on guys from a press man alignment, that's what makes this such a brilliant call, if you ask me. The touchdown to St. Brown that was negated by the first offensive pass interference call. I get it that people have different things they want to focus on. Certainly the Lions offense deserves, some blame, particularly for the third quarter, getting nothing done, letting Pittsburgh totally dominate that 15-minute stretch and eventually take I think a 12-10 lead on a safety that was kind of preceded by some poor play calling, I'll say, by Dan Campbell. But I'll focus on that a little bit more in some film study stuff on Monday. I just wanted to get this out quick, my initial thoughts and reaction, and I could be drastically wrong. Maybe there'll be others who say, no, that's an obvious offensive pass interference on Isaac Tesla. I don't think so. Goff still gave them a chance. Tesla had the ball in his hands, elevated over the middle, an opportunity to make the game-winning touchdown catch and kind of atone for this penalty, in air quotes, that was called on him. And then the final play, the one where St. Brown catches it just short of the end zone, laterals it back to Goff, who dives in, and the refs take 5 minutes or 15 or whatever. It felt like 15 to me to finally determine that it was an OPI. In any case, you guys let me know what you think of basically my main thoughts here. The defensive lack of awareness and game situation, late second quarter, and then the two big run plays by Warren. I didn't show any pictures and obviously can't show any video. In my opinion, the Lions defense deserves criticism and evaluation for not being in the right place pre-snap and not having any awareness of the same pattern of plays that the Steelers have run out of certain personnel groupings and formations. And then the refs deserve the rest of the blame, the exclamation point, for this piss-poor penalty they called on Tesla.